Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 20th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery here. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon, Hawaiian Islands. Here's the Gulf of Alaska. You can see the pattern change clearly. Coming across the Gulf of Alaska here, it's going to dive across the Pacific Northwest, start to bring some precipitation as we go into the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow. Weak frontal system moving through today is going to stir up the atmosphere a bit, start to bring some onshore flow, and start to clean things up a little bit as we go through the day today. And we should get a pretty good westerly flow across much of the Pacific Northwest by the time we start hitting this afternoon. Nice cutoff low here, known as a Kona low to the Hawaiian Island forecasters here. An interesting feature on the infrared satellite imagery. You can see the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook bullseye here across Pacific Northwest. Pattern change, it's on its way, folks. We have that signal here in the temperature outlook as well. Check this out. They've introduced severe drought to the west slopes of the Cascades and Washington coast. It's going to get erased here over the next couple of weeks. But what we're really trying to do is get some of this extreme and exceptional drought out of here for the east slopes of the Cascades of Oregon. And it doesn't look like we're going to give them that much help here, but hopefully we can start to take a bite out of that as we get into the later fall and winter months. Taking a look here, the European total precipitation inches. You kind of get the gist of what's coming here. Here we go into Saturday morning. Look at the Cascades of Oregon, probably the winners of this first system here, as that low is going to dive right into the mouth of the Columbia here and bring some good precipitation values to the Cascades. Next system rolls through on the day Monday. Look at the Washington Cascades start to really pile up the precipitation amounts as well. Start to hopefully put out that Bolt Creek fire and some of these fires across the Cascades of Washington. Another system rolls through Tuesday night into Wednesday, and another one towards the weekend. So you see the precipitation really build up across western BC, Vancouver Island coastal ranges. But you can see there's some rain shutout areas like the Columbia Basin is kind of notorious for that, and down towards that drought-stricken region here in southern Oregon. And not that much help, but hopefully some of this precipitation works its way in there as well. Now this is looking at the next 15 days snow map. You can see as I scroll through this quickly, the snow is going to build up. I'm trying not to look too close at exact totals for any certain area, but you can see the snows really pile up across the Oregon Cascades, Washington Cascades, BC, getting good shot of snowfall here too. The Rocky Mountains as well, even the Olympic Mountains getting on that action too. So if you're looking out from the Puget Sound, you'll see the snow-capped Olympic Mountains here by the time we get towards early November. So nice signal there as well. This is looking at 39,000 feet up in the atmosphere, 200 millibars. This is the strong jet stream. We're looking at the North Pole here. There's Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon. There's the Hawaiian Islands. Here's Russia out over here, and you can see that jet stream just point right at the Pacific Northwest, open up the trough for Friday's system here. Then we introduce another system here Monday. And then another one midweek slides through here before yet another one comes towards our way next weekend. So we have multiple systems rolling through here as we go through the end of next week. Now taking a look here, 10,000 feet, just kind of showing you the visualization of this cold air as it dives across the Pacific Northwest. We back up a little bit further. You can see the ridge that's kind of been on us is kicking off to the east as this pattern change takes place, and that cold air really just dives and punches into the Pacific Northwest. It's going to be nice to clear this air out across the region. Check this out. You can see the frontal system move across today, very light precipitation. Then you can see Friday's system just blast across the region. That low starts to develop right off the Oregon coast, but it is a late breaking system. It's going to dive right in through Oregon, bring some pretty good precipitation amounts coming up here for the Oregon Cascades as we go on in through Friday into Saturday morning here. And then Monday's system starts to roll through. It's a little bit further north than we initially thought here. This one had some storm potential down here, but it is going to move through British Columbia, breezy conditions, but you can see it's going to spread more precipitation across the region here. Going a little bit off more into the future here, you can see that next system kind of move through here, a fairly weak low, but it is going to bring some nice precipitation amounts again Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and then yet another system as we get towards the weekend here. So plenty of systems coming up here, folks. Now taking a look at the HRRR, 8 meters above ground smoke density. You can see it's been locked in here across the Willamette Valley, Puget Sound, up towards the Fraser River Valley, Vancouver, BC as well. But you can see as we get towards the afternoon hours, look at this westerly flow coming across the Cascades, kicking this smoke into eastern Washington, Idaho, and Montana, and eventually mixing it up enough so it's going to really clear out much of the area. Now we're into Friday afternoon here, and you can see that westerly flow is still continuing across the Cascades, really shunting the wind off to the east here. So hopefully this is enough to clear out a lot of the atmosphere here as we go on into Saturday morning, shown there. Now taking a look here, 100-meter wind speed on the European. You can plainly see that as we go through the overnight hours tonight. Look at these winds coming down the east slopes of the Cascades through the gorge here. Onshore flow, Strait of Juan de Fuca, Strait of Georgia, North Puget Sound starting to stir up pretty good too. So let's kick this smoke out of here. And then you can see that system dive into the Gulf of, actually the mouth of the Columbia River here and down towards Oregon. This may bring some breezy to windy conditions here across the coastal area here, as you can see the strong winds across Oregon. But you can continue to see the onshore flow going on in through this weekend across the area as these systems continue to move through. Now taking a look here, this is the NAM 3K. I'm just showing the same thing here. You can really see as we go into the overnight hours tonight, these westerly winds kicking down the east slopes of the Cascades. But we will be getting this onshore flow, so it will be stirring up the atmosphere. It's tough to say just how quick we'll kick the smoke out of here. This is looking at today, this afternoon. You can see the winds are still fairly light across some of the Puget Sound, Willamette Valley. But then they pick up a little bit here, but it's still kind of squirrely, especially Central Sound in Seattle here, where a lot of people reside. So fingers crossed that this does clear us out quite nicely by the time we get to the evening and overnight hours tonight. And by tomorrow, the precipitation should be rolling across much of the area here. Now, taking a look here, this is for the next 15 days. Look at this. A lot of precipitation expected. This should really help put out these fires across the Cascades here. I know it can take a long time to truly put out a forest fire, but we can at least stop them from producing the huge amounts of smoke they have been that keep drifting back into the Willamette Valley, Puget Sound, through the Fraser River Valley, Southwest BC. And so I'll run through this one more time here as we go on in through. This is Friday morning here. Now, this is late morning. The precip starts for much of the area as we go through the afternoon. This is overnight Friday into Saturday morning. And you can kind of get the picture there. There comes Monday's system. Then Tuesday's system rolls through there. Then the next weekend system rolls through there. So we're really going to have a good chance to put out these forest fires across the Cascades and make this kind of a distant memory by the time we get towards Halloween shown right there. You'll be out trick-or-treating about this time and maybe dealing with some rainfall, but I'm sure you'd rather have the rainfall than the smoke if you're out trick-or-treating, that's for sure. Now, taking a look here, this is integrated vapor transport. This is the west coast of North America, Washington, Oregon, British Columbia. This is the GFS, and this kind of shows how we measure atmospheric rivers. Once you start getting up over 500, you can get, there's different charts here, and I'll show you. Once you get over 500 to 750, it's considered an atmospheric river if it's under 24 hours. Once you get above 24 hours of duration for any one of these atmospheric rivers over your area, though, they can really start to pile up the precipitation and the impacts. So looking at this here, you can see these are pretty progressive, as you can see. So we're not looking at any major atmospheric rivers coming up here, at least for probably the next week or so. As we go on through the extended, we're kind of watching this Gulf of Alaska troughing setting up here as we get towards next weekend. And this could spawn an atmospheric river. Now we're looking next Saturday afternoon. You can see how some of this is kind of slowed down, and this is training over Vancouver Island in Western Washington. But up until then, these systems are fairly progressive here, and these are not huge precipitation makers, just kind of moderate, steady precipitation makers. For example, there goes Friday's system. You see it move down the coast quite rapidly. Then we go on into Sunday night, Monday's system. You can see that's pretty progressive as well. Then we go to the midweek system here, pretty progressive as well. So right now we're not looking for next week or so at any major atmospheric rivers across the Pacific Northwest. You can see they're based on duration and the intensity of that vapor transport. So once you get up over 500, it is considered an atmospheric river. But again, if it's moving along pretty quickly, it's not going to cause too many problems here. We probably did have some brief values above 750, so maybe it could be considered a Cat 2 atmospheric river, but not really anything to take note of because it's less than 24 hours. It's not that big of a deal. But again, towards the next weekend, we could be looking at something that lasts for more than 24 hours and bringing pretty good magnitudes across the region. So we'll continue to watch that. Anyway, this is the atmospheric river matrix. This is how we measure the category of atmospheric rivers. And this is another of the same chart right there. So this was, we'll look at it one more time. Again, progressive, moving through the area. No major atmospheric rivers coming up here until potentially next weekend right now. And I'm always watching this, so we'll continue to monitor this to see if anything changes, and we'll watch how the model runs trend for this feature here. But the European and the GFS have been showing some Gulf of Alaska troughing, which can spawn these atmospheric rivers. So we'll just watch it at this point. Now looking at Seattle, you can clearly see the pattern change in the temperatures coming up here. We're going to go from above average to just below average for a while here, probably at least a week coming up. And then Boise here, check it out, looking for some warm days here coming up. And then the pattern change, you will feel it as you go on in through the weekend and in through next week. Portland International, same thing here, from above average to below average. Klamath Falls, look at that, some of these overnight chilly lows. Look at that, big temperature swings coming up here. Missoula International, you can see as you go off further to the east, that cold air is going to hit them too out through western Montana. Check out the huge pattern change coming. Helena Regional Airport there in Montana, same thing as well. Look at some of these chilly overnight lows, a lot of cold air blasting down. Now this is Portland International. You can see how the models were kind of swinging back and forth. They've kind of stabilized a little bit the last two runs here. So you can see Portland picking up some pretty good precipitation totals. By the time we get towards Halloween, we could be up over 3 inches from where we are now at Portland International. Seattle actually showing a little bit less precipitation here, but we've kind of stabilized the run. It dropped down and then picked back up a little bit. So maybe it'll kind of hang out here. But as we get towards Halloween, we can probably expect 2 or even more precipitation, 2 inches or more across Seattle. Now this is looking at 6-hour precipitation amounts. You can see Mount Hood, 6 hours, 0.78. That's pretty good amount there. Some of the burn scar areas might have a difficult time, but really we're not going to be dealing with any flooding with these next few systems that roll through next week. These are 6-hour totals here. So right now we're just talking about burn scar areas with the potential for some mudslides and localized flooding. But as a whole, overall, we're not looking at a big flooding event here, at least through the next week here. This is Stevens Pass. This is towards that Bolt Creek fire here. In 6 hours on a burn scar, that can be a problem there. But again, it's not going to be an overall flooding problem as we go through this next week. This is Paradise here. Any fires that were burning up towards Mount Rainier, like the Goat Rocks fire, could have some issues with some of these precipitation totals, but should be very localized. This is Mount Baker ski area. You can see 6/10 in a 6-hour period. Not too bad, but again, unless you're dealing with a burn scar area, we're not going to be dealing with flooding at this point. Siskiyou Summit kind of showing the 6-hour periods down there. There were some fires down there towards Northern California as well. Whistler, you can see maybe some a little bit heavier totals out there, but again, probably only a problem for burn scar areas. Looking at the fantasy windstorm hunt, you can see it's been pushed back to the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe where it's showing a few big windstorms kind of intermixed in there as we go. But again, nothing coming out of Fantasyland yet. You can see these are kind of scattered all over the place here. The mean is generally below 30, so we're not really pinpointing any one time frame yet. Models have not come into agreement as for a windstorm here across the Pacific Northwest just yet. This is Quileute kind of showing Friday, actually Sunday night system as we move into Monday morning. Could get blustery along the coast here, but nothing like that they aren't used to out there. Generally just around the 30s or maybe 40 mile per hour range. You can see some bigger windstorms mixed in here as we get out towards the extended forecast as well, but still just Fantasyland at this point. Checking out Long Beach, Tofino out on the Vancouver Island coastline here. You can see some bigger wind gusts out here again, but just pure fantasy at this point. Now take a look at here, the experimental. They've left that risk of high winds up here across the west coast of North America. This would extend up into British Columbia as well. And look at this, that heavy precip and the heavy snow. They've still got that alert out there in this experimental extended product. Now, taking a look at this. This has been brought out today, October 20th. Seasonal temperature outlook, December, January, February. Look at this below average signal across much of the Pacific Northwest here. Exists all the way down through central Oregon. So kind of an interesting signal for this winter here. Still based mainly on La Nina coming up here, but below average temperatures expected here. This mainly being for the winter months. This is for December, January, February. We have an above average signal here across the Pacific Northwest for precipitation too. So hopefully we can really bust this drought out of the area here and help to fill the reservoirs and maybe build that snowpack up quite nicely as we go through this winter. Now this is January, February, March. Now we start to go into early spring at the very latest point of this forecast here too, but still that below average signal there. and above average kind of kicks off a little bit to the east, including Montana. Take these with a grain of salt, of course, as always, but it is always interesting to look at these seasonal temperature outlooks. Again, based on La Nina, check this out, February, March, April, still showing that below average signal across much of the Pacific Northwest here. Precipitation chances, kind of pushed off to the east there. March, April, May. Are we going to get another late start to spring again next year? Models kind of pointing at that, or the extended models anyway. But right now, take it with a grain of salt. Nothing to worry about at this point. So anyway, yeah, we should start to stir up this air today. Weak front, you can clearly see it here on the infrared satellite imagery. Stronger front arrives Friday. We start to bring precipitation across the region. So cross your fingers that we can clear out all these low-lying areas through the Willamette Valley and the Puget Sound, Southwest BC, the Fraser River Valley. Hopefully we can get enough wind in here to clear that out tonight and bring big improvements. And then Friday can do the rest of that job of cleaning us out across Pacific Northwest. Hopefully these precipitation amounts don't cause any localized flooding on the burn scar areas, and we can really extinguish some of these fires across the Cascades. So cross your fingers there. Looks like the rains are coming here, but they are going to be spread out over at least a week or so, but we look to remain active as we go towards next week, as well as the Gulf of Alaska troughing looks like it's going to develop and continue to bring systems into the Pacific Northwest. So this is the change we've been waiting for. We're almost there. We'll do another briefing tomorrow as per usual, and I'll go into a little bit more detail tomorrow on what Friday's system is going to bring across the area, because there are some rain shadows showing up, like the GFS had some of the Central Sound rain shadow a bit on some of the models, but we'll go over that a bit tomorrow morning. So hope you guys are having a good day. Appreciate everybody. Leave some comments. Let me know what you'd like to see. It's getting hectic this time of year. It's very fun. We're going through the transition. It's finally here. We're almost there. Hang on for one more day, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.